what went wrong, often you don't have anywhere to start. You're like, I don't know, the thing went wrong. The thing went wrong. You don't usually have a code or anything. It's like, oh, I don't know, got to figure out some stuff. Finding things that you might like getting recommendations, is a really exploratory task as well. Because again, you can't just say, I want a thing. You're like, give me stuff I want. And so any learning task is also exploratory. So anywhere where you're like, I don't know a thing yet, I'm going to learn. I made some of my images today with AI, and I can't even remember what I used as the prompt for this, but somehow I got old ladies looking at hats. Which I don't know what it is about this photo, but it just like amuses me that there are old ladies looking at weird hats. I guess they're exploring to find, a hat that's perfect for them. So the thing that matters for is that you'll use different solutions depending on whether you know that people are doing exploratory tasks or known item. So when you have, and again, people don't do just one or the other, and when you're designing any kind of content system, you'll want to be thinking about both of these. But for known item, which you can probably kind of figure out in the way I described how it works, is you can give people search when they've got a known item task, because they have a word and they can put it in a box and they can see that they've got a result and they know that they've got the answer. So if they're looking for a book, they can put the book in the box, they can see it, they've got it, done, really fast. People often ask each other or ask AI or ask, because again, like all of the known item tasks in my house go, hey G, how many calories in a glass of wine? Known item task. Google can tell me straight away, and I'm not doing that in actual words because otherwise my phone's going to do it. Known item task. Another solution is then browsing, so things like an A to Z index, where again you've got a word in your head so you can look down a list and find an answer. Mostly alphabetical indexes aren't good for much, but they're really good for known item tasks. So again, on the other side, exploratory, people will often start searching, but they may not have the right terms. They might find something and kind of go broader. They might find something and go narrower. They might go to a related thing. There's a lot of poking around with exploratory tasks. And this is why you can't just provide search or ask, as the only solution to people getting content. Unless you always know that people are only ever doing known item. That's why we need to provide, navigational options in our content. I wrote, they go around in circles. You certainly go around in circles. You might stop and come back to a task, or you might just ask somebody as well. The next this is just a little principle and a good one, again, for if you're working with like large volumes of content. I'm sure it has an actual fancy name. I can't read my slides. I can't read my speaker notes. I'm sure I wrote the fancy name in here. I'm just going to zoom in. No, I didn't even write the fancy name in here. It's perceptual salience or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'll go back to that slide. When something looks difficult, people automatically assume that it's difficult, which is not how things should work. Like, difficult things should be difficult because they're difficult, but not because they just look it. So I made this example of I got the beginning of Dracula, and I put it on one side in the format of it looks like a academic article. It's compact. It's in 2 columns. The font's really yucky. And then I did a separate version where it's got some spacing. It's got some pictures, like the one on the right. Looks like it's harder. And if you ever look at an academic paper, at least my brain goes, oh, I'm not going to read that. That's too hard. Doesn't really seem terribly logical. I found this great old screenshot in my kind of old folders of Amazon. Actually, the thing that I really like about this is that it's got personality. And a lot of our sites these days have completely lost their personality. They're so bland. this has got lots of personality, but you look at it, and especially compared to how we've trained ourselves to, use websites these days, you look at it and you go, wow, there's a lot going on. And even in the days, this was pre-2008, even then people would look at something like this and go, oh, it's pretty cluttered. And what's happening in your brain is like, this is a bit too hard because it doesn't look easy. So things that make content look hard is any kind of navigation that isn't sequenced well. Because what your brain wants to do is go, what's here? How's it arranged? Where will my thing be? So if you've got navigation items that are, in a strange sequence, brain automatically goes too hard. A lot of content can look too hard. Limited white space, so squashy things like that Amazon site, looks hard. Heading hierarchies that aren't like really nice and clear, things where you can't figure out like the relationship between things, look hard. Long blocky paragraphs, or kind of similar paragraphs where there's no rhythm in the content, where it just actually kind of looks repetitive. Things that are easy, nice, professional looking, visual design, good white space. White space gives our brain like that ease, but also just says, oh yeah, I can cope with this. Good heading hierarchies, a varied information structure, so bulleted lists, tables, things that again, when you look at it, you're like, okay, I can deal with this. A manageable amount of content, so not crazy long pages unless that's really the best way for that content. And navigation that people can skim, get a feel for, understand, like what's the concepts here, where is my thing going to be. I threw this example in, it was like the first thing after writing this slide, I'm like, I've got to throw an example in here. And I opened up my email and this is just an email from a podcast network that I subscribe to and use. And I was like, this just looks nice. Like, I would open that email and go, sure, I'm going to read you, because it's got some nice rhythm. I can see buttons. There's like nice boxes. Some of this is very poor accessibility. I was a bit cross with them for like yellow and white, but otherwise it looked approachable. It wasn't like nasty email that I'm like, wait, it's way too hard. So another, this is again just a small, I've got two big topics, two small topics in the middle. I often hear or read, and I've seen this for a really long time, that when you're arranging content, this shouldn't have more than kind of 2 levels of hierarchy. And a lot of my professional experience has been on really large websites. Like I've worked on websites that have millions of pages of content, but not only that, like 1,000 pages of content. You got 1,000 pages of content? Like mathematically, it makes no sense to say you can only have 2 levels of hierarchy. It is just like literally dumb advice because there's no logic to it. So hierarchy is okay. It's fine. You're allowed to do hierarchy. A good thing about hierarchy is that it matches how, like, our brains think. We think in actually 2 directions. So we think about like, the world, big concepts, and we break them down into bits. But we also think in bits that we assemble into other bits. Like, it's how brains work. So hierarchy is great because it matches like how we actually think. A way that you can help people to learn is to what's called layer content. So you start with a broad concepts, help people understand, a broad topic. Go into a bit more detail, help them understand the detail. Go a bit more detail. If they don't need to know that, like really, granular stuff, they don't need it. So you can layer content with hierarchy to really help it be much more approachable. And I used this example because this is the player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons on D&D Beyond. And like, this is a whole book, like, a whole book. The new book's like this fat, really fat book. And, they break it up into chapters, topics, blah, 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 and they just do the hierarchy visually well. So you can see where you are in the structure, you can get around. There's no way they can break a big fat book down into 2 levels of hierarchy. That's just dumb. Unless you had, these pages are bonkers long anyway, but you would have, I don't know, it just makes no sense. But yeah, this is a good example of visual navigation that works really well and supports the content super well. So my last kind of big topic is ways of grouping content. Like when we've got a pile of content that we need to communicate to people, what ways might we arrange it? So I've got some first examples that you think will work that don't work, because that's the best way to learn. One example is that people often think you can group content by task, the tasks that people do. The reason this doesn't work super well is that the tasks that we do with content can be, very varied. This is one of my oldest favourite task-based websites. And this is super old, where you have hay or need hay. That one works because there's 2 tasks. But beyond that, we've usually got a lot more tasks than just having hay or needing hay. This poor old site isn't around anymore. I had to dig that out of my screenshots. This is old Bunnings, but I like the example. So this is an example where they used to arrange all this content by content type. So they've got books and planners, brochures, calculators, etc. We don't think like that. We don't think about how to, renovate the kitchen or paint a wall according to books and planners and brochures. So that's content type groupings don't work very well either. This is a super old version of Vodafone where they arranged things by audience, so personal use and business use. This also doesn't work super well. Sometimes you can slot yourself into an audience, but a lot of time, especially again, you're doing a thing, you're trying to find information or learn something, you don't always fall neatly into audiences. So the best way to arrange content in ways that work for people is to use topics, subjects, the way that people think about their task. And Choice has quite a good, being a very large site with a lot of content, it's quite a good topic categorization system. So that's the one that's going to work most often. The others can work in limited circumstances, so they're not things you would never use, but thinking about how people, think in terms of topics first will always put you on a good path. Thank you very much. Nice short talk. First short talk of the day for you. I'm just going to linger on the superest QR code ever with kittens and yarn. You can scan that and go to my LinkedIn. You can come to our booth at MakerX and make some QR codes yourself today and maybe win some Lego. I don't know if you'll ever make one as cute as my kittens, but look at your little faces. Do we have a few moments for Q&A or are we right on time? 2 minutes, okay. We can do Q&A if anybody has a Q.
All right, first question. I'm just curious how culturally specific that advice is particularly around websites.
I tell you what, LinkedIn me later, or anybody, I found this crazy good article the other day about cluttered websites visually that went into a deep dive about why they work, and it's not entirely cultural, it's also about experience. So there's expectations that you need to work with. People who are used to seeing really compact information can take more in. And so I think it's more experience than necessarily kind of deep culture. Yeah. That's why you need to know your own users and your own groups to design.
All right. One more question. Yes? Thanks for your talk, Donna.
Thank you.
Just wondering if there's any kind of nuance to go on in
There's a lot. So internal developer documentation, the nuance is, and again, linked in me because I have a whole article on our website that I pulled the talk and compressed it because I had just done a developer doc project earlier this year. There will be like the learning kind of tasks, which are going to be very exploratory, like I'm trying to figure out how to use this stuff, but there's really a ton of known item reference kind of tasks, like looking up error codes, finding variables, stuff that's like very, very definitely known item, and you just want to dive in, get the thing and go. But when you're learning, you need more of that kind of guided content because it's a really exploratory task. So yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about developer docs exactly earlier this year. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone please give a round of applause for Donna.